Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Karen and I today. We're very much so looking forward to RESI Barcelona coming up here in just 2 weeks. I am Max Spratt. I am our BD director. I also handle all of our BD on the East Coast of the US. However, I will be in Barcelona and look forward to seeing everyone out there. This webinar is really going to be a little bit more technical, as we're actually going to go in and show you guys the partnering tutorial that has been open for about a week now. But what is really the most important and the reason why we wanted to do this webinar now is because as we get into the last 2 weeks of partnering activity, this is when it really starts to ramp up. So we want to make sure that everyone in here knows the steps, the tips that we have to make sure that you guys are actually maximizing the meeting opportunities and using this platform effectively. So Karen, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Max. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Dio. I am the VP of Product at Life Science Nation. A lot of times, if you're getting emails regarding partnering, they're coming from me because I am in charge of our partnering platform. We're really happy to really show you how to use the system to best advantage. Because, in our experience, knowing the ins and outs of the partnering platform and how it works can make a huge difference for a company in, less frustration and things like that, trying to figure out how to get stuff done. So we want to make sure that you know exactly how to use each portion of this system. So the way it's going to start out is you'll get an email from Hello Partnering with your access. If you're already registered, you will have already gotten your access. If you haven't received an email, check your junk for an email from Hello Partnering. If you can't find it, please reach out to us. If you've just registered, it usually takes about 24 hours to get access. So keep an eye out. You'll get your access within a calendar day or a business day. Technically, if you register on Friday night, you probably won't get it until Monday. But with that, when you do get access, this is what it's going to look like. You'll get an email, you'll click a link, you'll have to set a password, and then it will log you in. And so this is what the system looks like. So you're going to start off by either checking the existing profile or creating a profile if there isn't already one in the system for you. So you can go here to the personal profile and you can upload a photo of yourself. You can put in details, your contact information, your social, any information about your background and any information like that. And then you can do settings about your notifications from the system. So we definitely do recommend putting in a headshot if you can, because it's great for people to be able to see who you are.
Especially, and I'll kind of jump in, especially at the event, if you guys are coming in person, it is going to be kind of crazy. We're going to have tables set out for partnering activities. And yes, there's going to be table numbers on each table, which should make it pretty easy to find where you're going to be meeting. But it is always helpful to know who you're looking for. And that way, if you're running around like crazy and taking all of the meetings throughout the day, at least you'll know who you're looking for day of. So we certainly recommend filling out as much of the personal profile as well as the company profile as possible. And I think Karen will go in and she'll show you the company profile here. This is really important to fill out again, just because the more details you can provide, the better, not only for preparation for the meeting, but also give investors and give companies and any service providers that you may be meeting with, give them the opportunity to go through and see what it is that you do. And that way they'll know if it's, a meeting worth having.
Yep. And you can put in here, you can see here, you can put in assets based on if it's a therapeutic, a diagnostics, a medical device. And each one of them, if you're adding something, I'll show you an example of, for example, a pharma. If you're adding something here, you can see here, you can put in the name of the therapeutic, potential licensing status, the development phase, the description of the product, the sector, the type of molecule, and all of this information that you can put in here. And you can do, it's a little bit different, of course, for if you're doing, say, a medical device, But it's very similar in terms of development phase, product description, regulatory approval, classification. And so you can see here, there's a lot of similarities, but this really allows you to put in a lot of information. And
And
then,
one thing that, and I may be kind of going backwards here, but when you do upload your profile, you will get the option to sync it with BiotechGate. And you'll get that at first, and we always recommend doing so. For the reason being that you're going to be uploading and typing out a ton of information here the first time. And if you're able to import it, as you see here, it says profile imported from BiotechGate. That means that it's going to save. And so then when you turn around and you come to either Resi Boston in June or Resi Boston in September or one of our future Resi events, it will just be a lot easier to be able to import the profile rather than having to build it out new each time.
yes, absolutely. That is the system that they have in place for saving profiles. So if you attend any conference that uses the Hello Partnering system, if your profile is saved to BiotechGate, it will automatically pre-populate everything. So that's something that's really, really handy. And so you can see here, you can put in information about the management team, information about closed financing rounds, and you can also additionally put in information about your conference goals. So if you are seeking information like, and for a lot of you, it's going to be an investor in financing. So you can edit details about, how much you're looking for and what information you have about your current round. So all of this provides a way for you to really give a good screenshot of your company. Now, the other thing to really complete your company profiles, you can see here, upload company presentations. This is a way for you to put in either a recording if you have one, slides, and an executive summary can go here. Here in this info, it will give you the specifications of what you can and cannot upload in terms of file size and things like that. But we definitely recommend to upload, if you have it, a pitch deck, an executive summary, and a one-page data sheet. That way, investors can just look up your information and look into more details into your slides if they would like
And
to.
and if you have the three of them, we get this all the time. Upload the three of them.
Yes.
For the reason being, and it's quite funny, if you were to go and take a survey of a random room of investors and you asked them, what do you prefer to see? Slide deck, executive summary, or a tear sheet one pager? About a third of them would raise their hand and say, I want the one pager. It's all I look at. And Karen, that's you.
No, me's the pitch deck, actually.
I like to look at the pitch deck as well, but the other third will say, "Oh, I only look at the one pager." And so the whole theme of a lot of the tips that we try to provide you guys with is make it as easy as possible for an investor to say yes to a meeting, um, especially if they have a lot of deal flow coming in. We want to make it as easy for them to open up your stuff, see exactly what you do, and see if they're aligned in order to have that first meeting.
Mhm. Yeah, and that also will be true when we show you about messaging. A lot of times, if you craft a really good intro message, they might not need to look at your pitch deck to to get an idea of if it's a fit or not. So check out our recordings for the LSN Event Partnering Process webinar. That will give you a lot of more detailed information about how to craft your messaging in order to make it easier for an investor to say yes
Awesome.
to a meeting.
Karen, I see we have a question, and I'm not sure quite what it means. Karen asked, "What does the yellow cross mean?"
I am not sure. I haven't seen a yellow cross here. I know I think Carrie Ann, you sent me an email about, is this X? Is that what you mean? If that's what you mean, that's just to remove something that you've already placed. So here, for example, you'll see here in our services, it lists our LSN investor database. That's one of the services we offer. So this gives you the option to edit what you've already put or remove it and replace it. So that just means that you have successfully added an asset or whatever it is may be under your profile.
So if you meant to add something and you see the yellow cross,
That means you did
click the yellow cross because you don't want to get rid of it.
it. Okay, so once you've gotten your profile all set, you're going to want to go to your agenda. Now remember, this is a 3-day event. So you'll see here, it's on multiple days. And you can see here, it's asking about our local time zone. So I just confirmed that that is my local time zone. But I mean, if you're attending in person, because this is the in-person day, this is the event time. So this is when the meetings will be taking place. And you can see here what times they're scheduled for. You need to make yourself available. So if you can take meetings, you can also change the entire day with a click of a button if you would like. Um, which for the in-person day would probably be easier. But you'll also see here all of the sessions that we have. And so if you would like to block off your schedule to make sure that you get a chance to see a specific session, you can see here, oh, that is not working the way I wanted to. Hold
And one
on.
thing that I will mention too is it is pretty important to be able to mark off your sessions for the reason being that specifically virtually, we have investors attending from everywhere. So in person, there is obviously going to be a large amount of European-based investors, but we also have investors coming both from North America as well as from the Asia Pacific regions. And yes, while if they're going to be there in person, they'll obviously be in the event time. A lot of them are going to be attending virtually only, which means you need to mark your calendars to avoid having 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. meetings. And using the event time versus your time zone tab makes it really easy.
Yes.
Specifically, if any of you guys in here are just doing virtual partnering, I would definitely recommend doing that.
Yeah, so you can see here that I now have registered for that session. And so now my calendar is blocked off for that hour so that I cannot book partnering meetings. And you can easily unregister if you want, register for any session if you want to block off your calendar for that specific time. If you're attending virtually, we will be posting video recordings of each session, probably within a week after the conference. So you will be able to click into the more and see the video recording if you would like to. So that is something to keep in mind. But yes, as Max mentioned, for the virtual days, that is when you really need to make sure that you are doing your schedule properly and blocking off your schedule or opening up your schedule only for the appropriate time for you if you are not located within the same time zone. So for example, I would not really want to take meetings before 9 a.m. Eastern if I were local. So I can start changing my schedule uh, appropriately. Now, the one thing to note is you can send meeting requests if your schedule is still all unavailable, but I really recommend doing this first so you don't have to think about it afterwards. Because the way the system works is once a meeting is accepted, we run an auto scheduler. Currently, it's once a day. Starting next week, it will be every hour or so. And so once the auto scheduler runs, the meetings will start showing up on your calendar. And if you don't have any times available, you will get an alert that says no mutual availability for your meeting. And then trying to coordinate, well, I'm available at this time, I'm available at that time. It can be a little bit of a pain. So open up your schedule as much as you can off the beginning so you don't have to play that song and dance of trying to figure out when you and the other person is available and, try to figure out scheduling manually that way.
Yeah, exactly. And Karen, to go back to something that you had mentioned a minute ago, all of the session recordings will be made available directly through Hello Partnering. This partnering platform will stay open for about 4 weeks after the event. However, all of those videos will be uploaded on our YouTube as well. So you'll be able to see them either if you have partnering meetings going on throughout the time, or if you just can't make the session, or if you're attending virtually only. So do not worry, all of the video recordings will be made available.
Yep. So once you have your agenda ready,
This is the
we go
important
to the
part.
search. Hmm?
This is the most important part, is how you
Yes.
actually get your meetings.
Yes, so if you're an investor looking for companies, you can do the search here. And then one handy thing is this is true for both investors and companies. You can always exclude results with existing requests. So if you've already sent a request, you can just automatically exclude them from the searches. And you can see here for investors, they can search by sector. Um,
And
it
Karen, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to maybe talk a little bit higher level about this because a lot of companies out there don't know the effort and the detail that we go in when we source our investors. Because what we do is actually really unique. And each investor that attends RESI, we vet them pretty thoroughly because it does two things for us, right? The first is it helps us make sure that they are a legitimate investor, right? And we want to make sure that if they're walking around with a red investor badge at our conference, they're representing an active fund and their fund is investing, right? So we make sure, first of all, that they're legitimate. But the second thing it lets us do is it lets our team get a really in-depth look at their specific thesis, right? So we will track across 10 different investor types. The three that we see most commonly are going to be angels and angel syndicates, family offices, and then, of course, early stage VCs. But no matter what group of investor or how we classify you, each investment group is going to follow some sort of thesis or outline dictating where and where they do not invest. We call it an investor mandate. So our team curates these investor mandates, and that allows you to then go in here and search by sector, subsector, indication, and stage of development. And we always say that when you are an early stage company and you're looking to get a target list of investors to meet with, because that's really what it boils down to, is getting a list of investors. And in order to get the right size list, those are the four things that you need to make sure are aligned. I mean, I'll repeat it again. It's sector, subsector, indication, and stage of development. And what we've found, and we've worked with hundreds of companies and hundreds of investors, or thousands actually, and seen their messaging directly. And we found that if you try to get more specific than that and add a bunch of filters, you end up ruling out some potential fits that, especially at the early stage, can be more opportunistic into where they invest. But then on the other side, if you're less specific than that and you're just blind firing out your meeting requests, you're kind of wasting your time with investors that are completely out of scope, right? So you want to find the fine line of targeting versus sending out as many as you can, and those are the four key ingredients that we think help you do that.
I will add one more, geographic exposure,
Yes, yeah.
where they'll invest. That can be another key thing. So, if you're in Europe, that will rule out an investor who it says they invest only in the US or something like that.
And
Uh,
just to clarify, geographic exposure, that is different than the country. So in there, you may see two filters. You may see country and you may see geographic exposure. And they're actually different things. Country is obviously where the investor is located themselves, while geographic exposure is where they have indicated to us through that one-on-one interview that they're looking to invest. Um, and Karen, I'll let you kind of go through the filters now, and we can talk about some of them maybe in a little bit more depth as you click around.
Absolutely. So here is the investor search. So one thing the first thing I want to note is that there's this really, really handy tool here. So for anyone who's registered, we add investors every day. So you have to make sure that you are doing this search periodically. You can't just do it the first time and then just not do it anymore. You need to go back and check to see which new investors we've added. So there's this handy feature where you can say, well, I want to see investors that have been added over the last 2 days or whatever it is since the last time you did a search and today. And that will allow you to say, okay, well, let's see what new investors there are that fit my criteria. So that's a really handy tool for additional screenings to make sure that you don't have to look through the entire list again, only the new ones that have been added. But you can see here that you can select, and you can also select your sector, and then also go into more deep depth of the subsector. So you can see here, there's information, all of the different modalities for therapeutics, and for Then there's medical devices
Mhm.
here, and
And
there's
for
some
those
imaging
of you
device.
who
Oh,
joined us, oh, I'm sorry. For
sorry.
those of you who joined us at RESI JPM or RESI Boston, where we also used this partnering system, you'll notice that first of all, the filter by date, that's a new feature. As well as we've cleaned up a lot of these subsector lists. So everyone give Karen a big thank you because now it's much simpler to go in there as well as figure out when the investors were added. And we
Yes.
think that's really effective in helping you guys narrow down your approach.
Yeah, and we have also added more detail on the subsector that wasn't available previously that is now available. So that's also something that we did. We've also cleaned up the therapeutic sector interest, that's indication. So that has been cleaned up. You just select your main one. So, just because it's something we see a lot, we're going to pretend that we are an antibody um, that is, so yeah, so antibody in cancer, because hey, let's ride the bandwagon. And then we're going to be preclinical, um, and we're approaching phase 1.
And we always recommend, and we get this feedback from companies a lot. If you are preclinical and your fundraise is to get you into phase one, select the two.
Yes.
Um, Same with if you're phase one and you're looking to now get into phase two, select both features, because that's just the search ontology that we use when we feature those investors. Is if you're here and you want to get there, just select the two.
Mhm. And we're going to say that, let's pretend that we're a company in Europe. Um,
And when you do the geographic exposure, always be sure to select global as well.
yes.
Because again, this is going to be where the investor has expressed to us they're willing to invest, meaning that those investors who we ask the question and they say, we'll invest anywhere. We're opportunistic, we're global interest, we mark them as global. So wherever you are physically, whether it's Europe, US, you are also global. So make sure to click both of them.
Yes, indeed. And so now we've tagged sector, subsector, indication, stage of development, geographic exposure. That's all we need. So we are going to hit search. And we see 59 investors
Mhm. Which is
that
great.
are potentially.
And that's a really good way of narrowing it down, especially as a first pass, right? I think we have as of this morning around 200 investors registered. We're still adding new ones, and we expect to finish close to 250. But right now, we've identified the best 60. And so once you've done that, this is when you go in and you can scroll through and read a little bit more in depth, and then start beginning to send your requests.
Yep, so you can see here, we're seeing information on the main description. You can view the entire profile. So information on what exactly they're looking for. You can see the investor details. And one thing to note is you'll see here the upgrade account to see all the details. So for anyone who has done the upgrade for Premier Partnering, the sectors and subsectors of interest and company and management team requirements, those sections will be full of text that you can then read more detail about the investor profile. You will also be able to see the email address of the delegates that are participating.
Mhm.
So that's what the benefit of the Premier upgrade.
Yeah, and so just to clarify a little bit more about what that Premier upgrade is, I know Karen has obviously addressed this is the information provided, but that is what I had alluded to earlier. That information is gathered when we do these interviews. So our team speaks to these investors one-on-one, and we get that information. And we always say that when you are an investor, um, and I know all of the companies out there probably know this better than anybody. But when you go and you look at an investor's website, you'll typically see that somewhere on there's going to be a little tab that says, where do we invest? And it is usually pretty broad, right? For the reason being that they don't want to turn away any potential deal flow. Um, and then they get drowned in deal flow. So what we do is when we ask them these in-depth interviews, we get a much more detailed look, not just on the check size and how often they allocate, but also specifically on what areas of indication, subsectors wise that they're actually investing. as well as some certain things of, do they take a position on your board seat? Do they have a preference to leading or co-leading? And all of that information is typically found under the two that are available through the Premier upgrade. And if you're registered now, the Premier upgrades, it's €500. You can either email me and we'll get you set up, or if you are not yet registered and looking to register for the conference soon, you should be able to just add that as an add-on with your registration.
Yeah, and Carrie Ann, I saw your question about, this says 123 total in the portal. Sorry, we're talking, Max said 200 investors, that's individuals. That's representing 103 different firms. That's where the disconnect is. So even though you're only seeing 123, that's different firms, not investors total. So that's where the difference lies. So you can, and then again, as we mentioned, yeah, here in the delegates, that's where you can see here, if you have the upgrade, you can see what their personal email is, so you can reach out to them individually. So then you've determined they're a fit. Great, you want to send a request. So here is where you send the request. You have here a place to put in the subject, put in your intro message. Ignore the priority. No one really pays attention to it. You can choose to send them your contact information, and you can
Like you
choose
should, there's no
who,
reason not to.
yes, there's no reason not to. And you can choose within your firm who you would like to be part of the meeting. And then you would hit submit, and it would send them a meeting request. Now, once you've sent them the message, you're going to want to go through the entire list, send messages to whoever's relevant, of all of the investors. And then once you've sent messages, they will appear here. So you can see here, we were doing some tests and things like that. So I have some previous messages here, but once you send a request, you'll see here it says requested. And you can see here all of the ones that you've sent. And if they haven't responded, which happens very frequently, rarely do investors respond to the first meeting request, wait a few days and follow up with them. That is the one most important thing companies can do. Don't just send one request and say, okay, I'm done. You have to follow up with them. We recommend a strategy of 4 messages total, 1 message and 3 follow-up messages. Have them ready ahead of time. And then you can just kind of copy paste them in. And each one shares something a little bit different. Maybe include more information about your technology, more information about the marketing or the management team, more information about the partnerships you may have. There's always something to highlight. And so you'll have your second message, third message, and then fourth and final message. And you can type the message here. You'll see your messaging history down here. And then you can type whatever your second message is here. And then you can send it, and then it's all together within the same tree. They can see all of the messages you've sent to them, and this is a great way to follow up. And then it kind of bumps it up. They'll get another email notification that they've received a message from you. It brings it back up to the top of their inbox, and it's a good way to make sure that they pay attention.
It is. And sending multiple requests, not only does it bring it up to the top of the inbox, but we have a silly tip that we know works. And if you start each meeting request and the first one, you say, first request, intro to my company. And then maybe you wait a few days, don't get a response. So you send a second and you literally put in there, you say, second request, colon, more on the technology. And you dive a little bit deeper into whether it's the technology or your management team or maybe some previous milestones that you've hit. But you continue to do that and you send the 3. And then on the fourth one, if you put you put final request and put the word final, it sounds silly, but for some reason investors will see that and they go, oh, final request, what could I have missed? And so not only does it get pinged back to the top of their inbox, but they see the word final, and for some reason that incentivizes them to then go and really dive a little bit more deep and read those messages. And we've seen it work, right? So we've seen companies who do that will typically go from, five meetings upwards to 15 to 20,
Yep.
just by using the processes that we have in place, because we've seen thousands of messages and we know what resonates with investors.
Yeah, and we've seen, if you say send 100 messages, We've seen that if you send only one out of 100, you may get, say, 5 meetings. But if you follow up with them, that will go, even if you're just hitting the same 100 people, it can go all the way up to, say, 25 meetings. Like the difference in the response rate between doing just one message versus doing 4 message is incredible. Just, the sheer percentage increase in the number of responses you get from the same group of people.
Mhm. And if you guys haven't started doing that yet, it is not too late. Now is actually the perfect time to do it because as we get within kind of the last 2 week and a half to 2 weeks out of the conference, this is really when we see investors start logging in, being a little bit more active in the partnering. And if you can continuously bring your message back up to the top of their inbox, that's when you start to see your meeting and your agenda really fill up.
Yep. And in our experience, about 80% of the partnering activity will happen within the last week. So next week.
Let's see.
Do we have any additional questions?
Mark asked that he's been accepted with a meeting but asked to schedule it, and he cannot quite find out how to yet.
Yes, so there is an auto scheduler. The way the system works is that we run the auto scheduler periodically. Right now it's about once a day. As of next week, it will be a lot more frequent, but the reason it does that is that it then tries to distribute the meetings as equally as possible, so that there's no, oh, too big, you're not too busy in any one stretch, and things are kind of evened out. So don't worry about that. You will get a notification once it has been scheduled, or you will get an alert telling you that it can't be scheduled if there's no mutual availability or something like that.
So to answer your question, Mark, if you haven't done so yet, the only thing you need to do is open your agenda, and then from there, the rest will be done automatically. Awesome. What I'm going to do is I will also put both Karen and I's email in the chat. Uh, Here's mine, and Karen, you're just k.deo.
Oh, Mark, Max, I'm gonna let you handle this question we have about um how the
Yeah,
RESI info and supplementing to PitchBook.
yeah. So my first question would be if you have access to PitchBook, that is great. If you're paying for PitchBook, that may be a little bit different because what we found is they're really expensive, right? And PitchBook is great at what they do specifically, which is they have a lot of information. But at the early stage, their information is not necessarily at all life science specific, and it certainly isn't as detailed because they web scrape it. And so what I mean by that is all of the information that they pull is going to be available from some public domain, while ours is a bit more specific. So and that's true not just for this partnering platform, but also for our investor database that we sell. So if anyone's interested in seeing the database, we can show that separately. But to answer the question a little bit more directly of how I think they can be supplemental, one thing that PitchBook does is it gives a lot of information. So if there's an investor that you find there and maybe source that way, you could then come in and get a much more detailed look at them through our system. Um, and I think that could be really beneficial. But at the end of the day, I know I'm probably a little bit biased, but what I've always found is that if you're a CEO, early stage, you will quickly find that fundraising takes a lot of time. And so if you're going to do it, you need to be a little bit more targeted. And I think that's where we come to help. We kind of pride ourselves on quality over quantity. And I think that's true not just of the partnering platform, but also the database. Awesome.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Great. And actually, just scrolling through quickly the list of attendees and people that are currently in here, I see a lot of you guys are already registered for RESI Europe. So if you are, please go into partnering, as soon as possible. Start sending either the first or start sending the second request out and start to book your meetings now. And if you are not registered yet for the conference and looking to do so, please reach out to us, especially, sooner rather than later. That way we can get you in here as soon as possible. And we are happy, to help you guys out. Awesome. Well, if that is everything, thank you all for joining. We've recorded the session, so we will of course go around and we'll send this webinar recording out. You can also find links to all of the previous webinars that we've done just on the RESI homepage. So we will send this out. We have kind of a written format. It's called the RESI Survival Guide. It is made available and downloadable once you've registered. So if you can go find your previous registration email, you'll find it there as well. If not, we'll include it. But what that Resi Survival Guide does is it just in writing walks through a lot of the tips we've given. So that four-step method to messaging and just a lot of our best tips there.
Yeah, and again, feel free to reach out if a question comes up later on that didn't occur to you right now. We'd be happy to answer it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And then we certainly look forward to seeing you in Barcelona.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.